Have you ever sat alone in a quiet room and felt fine? Better than fine, actually. And then someone asked if you were okay. Like silence was a problem that needed solving? Here's something wild. In 2014, researchers at the University of Virginia ran an experiment. They put people in an empty room. No phone, no music, no windows. Just you, your thoughts, and 15 minutes to sit there. Oh, and one more thing. There was a button. If you pressed it, you'd get a small electric shock. Before the study, almost everyone said they'd pay money to avoid that shock. But when left alone with nothing but their own minds, more than 60% of men and 25% of women pressed that button anyway. Some pressed it over and over. They chose pain over silence. If you're watching this video right now and thinking, that would never be me, I'd just sit there and think, you're not imagining it. You're part of a group psychology is only beginning to understand. And tonight, we're going to break down exactly what's going on inside your head. You're not just an introvert. You're something more specific. A self-sufficient introvert. Here's the difference, and it matters. A regular introvert gets drained by social situations and needs to recharge. But underneath that recharge, they still crave connection. They still want someone to get them. You're built differently. Your inner world isn't empty space waiting to be filled. It's already running, full of ideas, replays, conversations you're having with yourself, plans, theories, little debates about things nobody else even noticed. You don't feel bored when you're alone. You feel busy. And that's the part people misread. Society looks at you and assumes something is missing. Maybe you've heard it your whole life. You're so quiet. Don't you get lonely? You should get out more. Maybe you've even started to wonder if they're right. If something about you needs fixing. It doesn't. Let's talk about why your brain works this way, using a concept from cognitive psychology called high internal complexity. Basically, think of your brain like a device. Most people's brains work like a phone that needs constant charging from outside. Conversations, scrolling, noise, drama. The second that input stops, the battery drains fast. They feel restless, bored, itchy for stimulation. Your brain works more like a generator. It produces its own power. When things go quiet, you're not running out of fuel. You're switching into a different mode, one where your mind starts processing everything it's been storing up. Replaying conversations, connecting random dots from 3 days ago, mentally rehearsing something that hasn't even happened yet. This is called the default mode network. And for most people, when it switches on with nothing to do, it gets uncomfortable fast. That's literally why people press that shock button. Their default mode network had nothing productive to chew on, so it just generated anxiety instead. But for you, that same system becomes a playground. You're not avoiding discomfort by being alone. You're stepping into a space where your mind finally gets to stretch out and do what it does best. Now, here's something a lot of people get wrong, and a lot of you have said this in the comments before. Liking solitude doesn't always mean you're some highly evolved, level-up version of an introvert. Sometimes it's simpler than that. Sometimes you're not choosing solitude as some grand power move. You just genuinely don't have a problem with it. It's not a preference you fought for. It's just not bothering you. And honestly, that's just as valid. You don't need a dramatic backstory to justify being okay on your own. So where does this come from? Is it something you're born with or something that develops? Both, actually. Research shows this trait has real developmental continuity, meaning it shows up early and tends to stick around. Think back to elementary school. While most kids were outside running around at recess, there was probably a kid inside, reading, building something, drawing, completely absorbed. Not sad, not friendless, just somewhere else, mentally, somewhere that felt better. If that kid was you, here's the thing nobody told you back then. That wasn't you missing out on social development. That was your first version of deep focus. A kid who can disappear into their own project for hours isn't lacking social skills. They're building the exact muscle that, years later, lets an adult debug code for 10 hours straight, or write for months without burning out, or sit with a hard problem until it actually clicks. The activity changes. The core stays the same. Now let's say this resonates with you, but you're wondering, okay, can I build more of this? Can I get better at this, even if I wasn't naturally wired for it? Here's the honest answer. You can strengthen it, but the foundation has to already feel safe to you. If being alone genuinely terrifies you, that's not the same thing, and that's worth paying attention to with care, maybe even with support. But if you already feel okay alone and just want to make that time more rewarding, the move is simple. Give your mind something to chew on. A project, a question, a skill. Solitude becomes powerful when your brain has material to work with. Empty time and full time feel completely different, even when you're doing the exact same thing, which is nothing. This self-sufficiency shapes three big things about how you move through life. First, relationships become a choice, not a rescue mission. A lot of people get into friendships or relationships from a place of lack. They're looking for someone to fill a gap, quiet a fear, distract from being alone. When you come from that place, you tend to lower your standards just to avoid being by yourself. But you're not operating from lack. Your inner world is already full. So, when you choose to spend time with someone, it's not because you need them to survive the evening. It's because you genuinely want them there. That's a real compliment, by the way, even if you've never said it out loud. Second, you've got a built-in shock absorber for chaos. When everyone around you is panicking, reacting, spiraling, you tend to create a little space between what's happening and how you respond. You're not cold. You're just processing before reacting. While other people are caught in the noise, you're quietly sorting fact from feeling. That's often why, in the middle of a crisis, you end up being the calm one. Not because you don't feel it, because you process it differently. Third, and this might be the biggest one, you have the power of being willing to walk away. In any negotiation, in any relationship, the person who needs it less holds the power. A lot of toxic dynamics rely on the fear of being alone. People stay in bad jobs, bad relationships, bad friend groups, because the idea of being without them feels worse than staying. But if solitude already feels like home to you, that threat just doesn't land. You can walk away from something that isn't serving you, and instead of feeling like punishment, going back to your own space feels like relief. Now let's talk about something you've probably felt, but maybe never had a name for. There's a concept called internal locus of evaluation. It basically means you measure your own worth using your own standards, not everyone else's reactions. Think about it this way. You finish reading a book that genuinely changed how you think. Some people would immediately post about it. Caption ready, quote highlighted, waiting for likes. You? You probably just sit there for a second, letting it settle. Maybe you never tell anyone. And that's not you missing an opportunity. That's the experience already being complete for you. This doesn't mean you hate social media or avoid people. You can still post, still share, still show up. It just means none of that is required for you to feel like your life counts. The likes are optional. They're not oxygen. And honestly, that's the real flex here. When your sense of self isn't rented from other people's opinions, you stop performing your life and start actually living it. So if you're watching this and recognizing yourself, here's what we want you to take away. You don't owe anyone an explanation for staying home. You don't need a better excuse for skipping the party. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Preferring quiet doesn't make you antisocial. You can love the people in your life deeply and still need hours, sometimes days, completely to yourself. That's not a flaw in your personality. That's just how your mind recharges, processes, and grows. And in a world that's constantly asking for your attention, the ability to sit with yourself, undisturbed, might just be one of the most underrated strengths you have.